The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
I am Emily Swallow, also known as the Armorer on The Mandalorian. And I'm just giving a little shout out to the Secrets of Star Wars podcast because this is the way.
You're listening to the Secrets of Star Wars.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Hey everyone, I'm Thomas Sanjurjo, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away, including the deeper themes and meanings. And this week we're going to be doing something a little bit different. So you'll notice that Father Andrew is here, but he is not in the host seat this week because he said to me, "I don't know, man, this seems like more your thing." And so that's cool. I'm good with it. I know we've mentioned over the last few weeks that we were going to be doing an RPG version of Star Wars. So I just wanted to give kind of an introduction of that. But before I do, I want to say welcome, Father Andrew. It's good to have you.
It is. I'm excited to be here. This is my first experience of anything regarding tabletop RPGs. Awesome. I've done the video game RPGs a lot, but this is the first time kind of tabletop. So I'm super excited for this.
That's cool. Yeah, I love taking people from that spot where they've never done a tabletop RPG before, especially if they're used to the video games and doing the tabletop RPG, because the first thing you ask is like, well, what do I do? Because I think in an RPG in a video game, it's kind of obvious. You know, you have like a certain set of skills that you have to follow and things like that. And the thing about these is that there's really nothing. There's no script to it. I'm going to just kind of throw a very general outline of what we're going to do out there. And then you guys are going to help tell the story from there. And so it feels great. It's like a really cool thing. And I think I have a really good story set up for us. So we'll be doing that. Now, it's not just going to be me and Father Andrew. We're going to pull in the other guys as well. It's just that we couldn't get everybody on the show. And I'm actually kind of happy about that because this is going to make it a lot less confusing, I think, for the listener to kind of walk through one character building process instead of the whole character building process for everybody that's involved. So I'm super excited and I'm looking forward to it. Now, before we get started, you've had no exposure to tabletop RPGs at all,
other than hearing about it. So I mean, I know some of the generic kind of like the terms. Like I've heard, of a dungeon master and okay. I know some of those roles, but I've never experienced it. I've never watched it. I know, I think there's Critical Role?
Critical Role.
I mean, so like I know of them, but I am coming at this with very little experience or knowledge. So
excellent. I love it. I am a tabletop evangelist. This is one of the things that I really love doing. So you guys are in good hands. The system we're going to use is one that's a little different than what, even if you're a person who knows tabletop. So if you're a listener who's done tabletop RPGs, you probably haven't done this system. It's a lesser known system, but I really love it. The system itself is called The Burning Wheel. And it's made by this guy named Luke Crane and a few other guys that have worked with him on it. It's a very small team. They have 2 books and that's it. And so, like if you get into Dungeons and Dragons, one of the first things you notice is that they have these gigantic tomes that you have to buy. And then you have to get into all these adventure modules and everything. And they're always coming out with new books. These guys do not write much of that stuff. So, and the books that they have are lovely too. So if you like what we're doing and you wanted to go check it out, it's called The Burning Wheel. And we'll make sure to put a link up for you guys so that you can check it out. But we're going to do a sort of sideways version of it because we want to do Star Wars. We're not just going to do a generic RPG, which is kind of what Burning Wheel does. It keeps it really generic. So there's another set of guys on the Discord server that for for Burning Wheel that have gone through and created this star systems, is what they call it. And it's these guys, Joel and Greg Young, and it's a fantastic play off of what the Burning Wheel is. And the primary reason that I picked this one is because a lot of RPGs, they tend to be like very tactical. And so you need, like, if anybody's seen Critical Role, watching Critical Role is a lot better than listening to it, because you can see them move their characters around on the board and you see how the tactics play out. And so that's Dungeons and Dragons style stuff. Whereas this game is much more of like a collective storytelling game. And so part of what we're going to do tonight in making the character here is that you guys, and I'm going to make the characters with the other two guys off the podcast, so they'll get a little bit of input too. But you guys are going to tell me what kind of story you want to play. So I'm going to set up the big picture, and then you get to make your character. And part of making that character is you tell me what the story that you want to tell of that character is. So if you think about it, like The Mandalorian is a great example as the show. The story is about, this Mandalorian that has to go and retrieve this bounty, and the larger story is the bounty is Grogu and how he fits in everything. But the story that the Mandalorian's telling, the character or the player who's playing the Mandalorian, he's got some specific stuff that he wants to deal with. Like, who is this guy? How does his foundling nature fit along with his being a Mandalorian? And so it shapes the story as you go along in a different way than just the overarching, here's the whole story that we're going to tell. So I know you were having some trouble picking like which one of the species you wanted to be for the Star Wars. So did you settle on something in that?
So regard? I did. So I am I have this wonderful book called The New Essential Guide to Chronology, Droids, and Alien Species. And actually it's a pre-Disney thing, but a lot of the characters and stuff all come through. It's one of those really handy reference material books that it's full of a lot of information. And so I was just perusing through those, the alien species, and two jumped out at me, and I think I settled on one. And the two that jumped out at me were the Bothans and the Chiss. And I settled with the Chiss just because I have a huge affinity for Grand Admiral Thrawn. So I didn't want to be just a human, because I mean, this is kind of meant to get me out of my skin, if you will, and into something else. I mean, I think it's going to be difficult for me to kind of not have, or to, if I need my character to match a lot of my own kind of interior kind of thought processes anyway. But so Chiss is my choice for species.
Cool. Yeah, I like that you're pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. I think that's going to be good. Doing something new and doing something new inside of the new thing is good. I'm going to have to figure out how to fit you in as a Chiss. So that'll be double interesting, but I think it'll work. So
perfect.
Yeah. So what I wanted to do, my son and I were talking back and forth about this, and he's been helping me kind of plan for it and get ready, because he's super into this system and loves the fact that we're going to do like a podcast version of an RPG, of a tabletop RPG. And so before I get into talking about too much of the rules, I want to kind of set the big picture and the specific scenario that we're going to be running in. And the way he told me I had to do it was like reading a scrawl at the beginning of the Star Wars movie. So I had to write it
totally
just
appropriate.
Like
that.
Yep. And so I wrote it like that. So I'm gonna read it through, and then that'll kind of get your juices flowing, and then we'll start explaining some of the system and how everything works. So here's our opening crawl for our Star Wars story. It is a time of strife as the Galactic Empire continues swallowing independent planets and outliers in its increasingly bureaucratic grasp. The evil Sith Lord Darth Vader travels the galaxy with his newly founded League of Inquisitors, eliminating the last of the Jedi who escaped Order 66. It seems that no world can stand the oncoming of the Imperial forces. The specific scenario is that Bail Organa has sent out a diplomatic mission to one of the last holdouts of Federation space in an attempt to extract a necessary element of his budding idea of rebellion. But blockade runs are never an easy endeavor. And
That's fantastic.
So I think it's going to be a fun scenario. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So, and I've got it. Yeah, I'm not going to give away anymore. That's it. That's your big picture in your scenario. And we'll work on making our characters from there. So to give you a little bit of the background of how this game works is this game is about making characters that have a set of beliefs that they want to follow. And so we're going to try and keep it as close to this scenario as we can. So something in this scenario, something about the Federation worlds being swallowed up, something about Bail Organa sending you on a mission, something about possibly starting a rebellion, something in those needs to kind of be reflected in your character's beliefs. So why are they involved in this mess? And they can have other stuff. So they're gonna have 3 beliefs, basically. But one of those beliefs really kind of needs to center around, what we're doing specifically here. And this game actually doesn't use any of the fancy dice. So we're just going to use 6-sided dice for this one. So you don't have to have a special set of dice or anything like that, which is nice because then we don't have to worry about that whole mess either. But the way that this game works is you challenge those beliefs. You take that character and you put them into situations where those beliefs become challenged. So that, if a character believes that they need to overthrow the prince of the local area, then anytime they see a chance to overthrow the prince of the area, they need to take it. And that might be detrimental to what they're currently doing or to their health or their well-being, depending on how they go about it. And in doing that, they gain personality points like Artha or personality or deed points. And those allow them then to advance their skills. So rather than leveling up in your traditional RPG sense, you do something sort of heroic that's beyond your capabilities. And then you spend that extra, in this case, force power, basically, to advance yourself beyond what you're capable of. And then that allows you to advance your skills. So in a long-term campaign, you want to keep building up those difficulties for yourself, because then it gives you more points to spend to advance your character more and so on. So what we're going to do here is make a character from the ground up. And we're talking about a time period that's about 15 years after the start of the Empire. So the Empire's come, and we're pre-Rogue One, kind of in that, Bail Organa has started to get the idea of fomenting a rebellion. He's started to build some of those things together. And so what we need to do is build a character from sometime before the rise of the Empire. You're going to pick how they were born and then move them along the scale up to where they are right now. And the way we do that is by picking life paths for them. And so these galactic life paths are basically tell the story of how this character came to be. And so you kind of have to think about, like, what do you want this character's background to be? And they're split up into several different groups. So there's like a spacefaring setting where you have been part of an explorer group of some kind. There's the monastic setting, which is sort of like the Jedi Order. You were born into it. You've been raised into it. There's the fringe setting. So you're part of the outworld, groups like coming from Tatooine or possibly beyond
the unknown regions.
The unknown regions, right? And then there's the Glittering Spire setting, which is sort of like if you've come from the very center of the galaxy. So if you were part of not in the Jedi Order, but part of Coruscant or one of the areas that's really central to the entire galaxy. And then there's the Sunless Depths, which I think I was going through this when I was trying to figure out where they were pulling it from, but it's and I think it's one of those settings that's sort of specific to an older property, and I wasn't really able to pick up on it. Was there a book called Sunless Depths or something like that? They were
not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Well, and then there's the palace setting, there's a servant and servitude setting. So all of these kind of, you can flip back and forth between them. There's also a military setting, which that could be an interesting one to kind of slide into for your character as well. And it doesn't have to be that you've always been with the rebellion or something like that. So you could start off and then move into the Empire. You didn't like the way the Empire was doing things, and you ran into Bail Organa, and now you're working for Bail. So we're going to try and do a 4 life path character. So we're going to pick 4 life paths that you've gone through. So it'll be a birth. So you have to kind of tell how your character was born, what their childhood was like, what their young adulthood was like, and then moving into that adulthood phase. So as a teen and then as a young adult, where are you right now? So just to give the listeners a kind of a thought of what's going on here, when we're looking, and I'll link all these documents too. So I'll share all these documents because they are open documents, and I'll share them so people can read along with us if they'd like to. But as you're looking at it, basically what you're picking is, like in the spacefaring setting, there's a life path that's called Born Adrift, which means that you were just born on a ship, on a spaceship somewhere. And that's the first 10 years of your life is represented by that. And it gives you a couple of different skills and tells you where you can go. So the leads are kind of like where you can go. So you can go into the fringe setting, you can go into the sunless depths setting, or the servitude setting. So something happened to you from that spacefaring setting that moved you on then. And you were looking at the...
I was looking at the fringe, because I think that would be most appropriate. Yeah. I feel like my brain is a sponge right now, trying to
gather it all.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's cool. Like if you do that, or you could do the spacefarer too, where you're born on a ship.
So that actually might be more appropriate, because my thinking, at least for and this is where I definitely would like your help and input too in figuring this out. In order for a Chiss to be involved in galactic affairs, it actually probably wouldn't be appropriate for my character to have been born on Sela, the home planet,
right,
and raised like within the culture, because they are very notorious about, protecting their borders and not getting involved, and so it would make sense for my character to maybe be like, I don't know, his parents are adventurers, and they sort of broke away from the Chiss ascendancy and have kind of gone on a independent sort of life path.
I like it.
So
I think it works.
I think that would, so the Born Adrift is probably the and in my mind I was thinking pilot for his like skills anyway, so that actually kind of fits as well. So I would probably say Born Adrift there is an appropriate starting point for my character.
All right. So there you go. Okay. So then I would say, so let's take that. And actually, we've got the first 3 kind of built for us. If we move for a pilot, if you look down through the life paths, there's a star pilot specific life path. And it requires a spacer and any other pilot type life path, or the Sworn to the Order trait. So we could do Born Adrift and then Spacer.
And what is Spacer?
Spacer.
That's another. I see. It's in the life. It's in the document.
Spacefaring. Yeah. So then Spacer gives you another 5 years, and it's spaceport wise, hauling, jargon. You got the skill of drinking, odd jobs wise, and then you can pick a general point too. So you know how to hold your own with other people that are just living in a spaceport.
Perfect. Okay. So yeah. So Spacer,
and then we could throw. You could either do Star Pilot, or you could run. You could do a Star Pilot, or you could do Freelance Pilot, or you could go into the military. I think with Spacer we can jump out into the military. Yeah, so Spacer has a lead to the military life path. So you could do the Born Adrift, Spacer, and then we could take one from the military that's a pilot, and that's where you get your piloting skills, and then come back out to you ended up not liking the military. You had the same rebellious streak that your parents did, and came back.
Yeah, that could work. All out in the Chiss Ascendancy, or the unknown regions, I guess. Because yeah, I mean, he wouldn't join the military of the Empire, obviously.
Right.
So,
So it looks like we're going to have to grab you this Sworn to the Order trait at some point in here, because that seems to be the most common way to move into piloting.
And is that, I'm not seeing where that is. Is that in the spacefaring?
It'll be later. We'll make sure that we get it tied in, but it's a specific trait that you can take, and it says, henceforth you swear to abide in the instruction of your master and to set aside all material concerns. This is actually a Jedi Order promise. Oh, that's interesting.
Is that
I don't know if I like that. I don't think I want you to be a Jedi.
Yeah, yet.
Let's avoid that. So we can just put you into a pilot. We'll just say that you get picked up as a spacer. You have some skills as a pilot, so you become a military pilot. And that'll work.
What about the freelance pilot? Because that, I mean, not that the military is a wrong path, but
you could do that too.
I'm thinking more fly casual.
There you go. You got the Han style of flight. Okay, that works. We can do.
But that also, I mean, that also gives him a reason for, like, you know, if he's being hired to ferry people, glorified chauffeur,
right?
That would give my character a reason to be traveling into the galaxy.
Oh, here's how we'll do it. We'll do it this way, because I see what Star Pilot says now. So Star Pilot saying, so you got Born Adrift and then Spacer, and then you'll do Star Pilot and Freelance Pilot, and that'll be your 4 life paths right there. And so then the story that we're telling is that for 10 years you were floating around in space with your family.
Yeah.
Whatever they were doing. And then for the next 5 years, you kind of worked as a spaceport. You know, you learned how to pull your own weight rather than just kind of hanging with them. And then you learned that you really like piloting. So you became a star pilot. And from there, you decided to go off on your own and freelance pilot as well. So that's good. I like that. That works.
Yeah.
All right, so to avoid all of the mechanical, like, we're gonna add everything in, because that gets a little tedious to kind of listen to. But what you do basically in this setting, or in this game, is it has a list of skills that come with each of the different life paths that you have. So you can actually calculate your birth years from the set of years that it says each one of these life paths takes, and then you're going to get the skills and traits that go along with those life paths. So we'll do some of the mechanical stuff in a little bit with the traits, at least, and the skills you'll kind of have to pick up as you go through. So, for example, with Born Adrift, you have a 2-point linguistic skill and 2 points in just general skills. So you can pick 2 different languages that you know, and then you can pick like 2 just general skills that you have. So they don't have to be related to anything specific. They're just whatever you did, you know, whatever your parents had you do while you were hanging out in the back of the ship. And then the spacer, you get 5 points distributed amongst the spaceport wise, hauling, jargon, drinking, or odd jobs wise, and then 1 general point. So you can take 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can take all 5 of those, or you can take 3 out of the 5, and you can give one, just be really good at one of them particularly. And then with the traits, you pick up the trait of seen it all there. So you've been everywhere, and you're kind of like nothing phases you. You're not going to be surprised by anything. And it's like, oh yeah, that happened this one time on on whatever planet.
I'll be one of those sitting around at the cantina telling stories. And
exactly, that's perfect. That's exactly what the spacer's for. And then as Star Pilot, you'll get 6 points to distribute amongst your pilot or helmsman, transmission, scopes, navigation, wonders of the galaxy wise, perils of the void wise, or perplexing phenomena wise. Now the wises are like things that you know something about. So you know something about the wonders of the galaxy, or you know something about the perils of the void. So where that would come into play is like if you guys get into trouble where you're on the ship and there's a hole has opened up in the hull and you have to do something about it. You can not only can you help do something about it, but then you can pull that wise in to say, oh yeah, I know something about perils of the void. We're going to need to cover ourselves with something as we go into this room because it's dangerous to walk into an airlock like that. And that would be how those play into the character.
Okay.
And then you get the superstitious trait, of course, which is awesome. So I want you to pick something like the fuzzy dice.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah. I'll need that on my dashboard.
Exactly. A chess hula dancer.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I hope Timothy Zahn isn't like, listening and it's like, what are you doing to my chiss?
Stop it. No, there is a running gag about tabletop gamers that they all begin like the dungeon, or they all begin like the Lord of the Rings characters, and they all end like the Monty Python characters. So just beware. Many jokes will be made.
Perfect. Well, and I think that's part of the fun of this too, is that, I mean, we're drawing from Star Wars lore, but we're kind of making it our own. Yes. And we're not doing it to make fun of the lore, but we're doing it to have fun and it's another way in which we can play in the sandbox that is Star Wars.
Bingo. And that's what I love about it, is that it's so, I'll tell you the two biggest problems I have in playing Star Wars games. One is that there is so much to pull from. Like there's just so much out there that it's really hard. And then, obviously everybody wants to be a Jedi. Everybody wants to be so limiting that and saying, okay, we're not going to do Jedi from the beginning. We're going to try and do some other stuff that's not Jedi centric is really good. And then the other problem is like keeping them on track.
Yeah.
Because there's a tendency to go, I have a spaceship. Now I can go anywhere I want to. It's like, you could, yes, but I wrote this whole story.
Yep.
So as the game master, and that's as the game master, kind of my job is to give you guys a compelling reason to go to that next thing that you're supposed to be going to, quote unquote, but not to limit it so much that it's like you have to take this next step and then you have to make these next choices and do these next things. Because my favorite part about sitting on this side of the table and not being a player is when the players surprise me and come up with something just completely unique and random that I had not thought of. And the turn of that is I love doing that to the players too. So just be mindful that like there's going to be some of that, like throwing things at you that you are not expecting.
Good, because I tend to be very orderly and methodical in how I approach things and do things. So I will appreciate having the curveballs just to have fun with it.
Good. Excellent. All right. And so then you see down here, freelance pilot, you have the haggling, marksmanship, transmission, scopes, gunnery, lawless sector wise, and then you get 2 trait points. And some of the other stuff won't make sense right now, but we'll get into it as we go through kind of building a little more of the character. But what it looks like is you're going to have a character that is 15.
So if I calculate it, I'm 25.
25, yeah. So you were around 10 years before the Empire rose, probably just bouncing around in distant space, not really part of what was going on. And now you found yourself wrapped up in this stuff through some of your freelance piloting, because it's like the last 10 years of your life, basically, you've been a pilot.
Yep.
All right. So that's good. So somewhere in there,
I would have
started
been
drying in.
I would have been learning about all the space things during the Clone Wars.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that gives you the context.
Yeah, it's fun to have that context. Even though I suspect, at least with my character, he would have been far enough removed, probably still in the unknown regions, to not really be too affected by it. But still, that's what's going on in the larger galaxy.
Mm-hmm. And so then so what we'll have to do is we'll have to work in, I would say that probably you are part of the blockade run. You've been hired on to be the pilot for this group, this diplomatic group that's going in to do the blockade run.
And Bail's the one who's hiring.
Right.
Okay.
So you got an offer you couldn't refuse from Bail Organa.
Freelance pilot. No job refused.
There you go.
Perfect.
Blockade run? Sure, I can do that. No problem. All right. And so you got that character worksheet, and that's kind of, you're going to put in those life paths in there, and we'll crunch the numbers kind of off camera. I just wanted to get our general story started here, kind of mulling over it and stuff. And basically what that's going to do is that's going to tell you what your character's capable of in the inside of the game. So when you have a certain set number of skills, so let's say you have like a 3 in a certain skill, that means that you're going to roll 3 dice to determine whether or not the thing that you said you're going to try and do works. And the thing I love about this game, my favorite part of the Burning Wheel, is that nothing fails. So if you say you're going to do something, you have an intent to do it, and then you go and try and do it, even if you have no successes on your dice, some part of what you determined happens. So let's say, for example, that your intent is to pick this lock before the guards get here. You would go to pick the lock, and then you roll and you fail and you get no successes at all. Well, you're still there picking the lock, and maybe you get the door open and the guards come around the corner and see you opening the door. So you've succeeded in picking the lock, but now there's a complication that drives the story forward that you then have to figure out what to do with. And so it's my favorite part about this one, because in D&D, it's kind of like if you roll and you don't succeed, it's like, okay, well, you didn't succeed. And then where do we go from there? Well, you try again. No. But in this game, it's let it ride. If you don't succeed at it, there's no going back and trying it again unless the situation changes somehow. So once you've tried it, the story's moving forward, and we're just going to keep going with whatever's happening. And so it keeps it from getting kind of stuck on like that one thing. We're going to search this room until we find something.
Oh, sure.
Okay. I mean, if that's what you really want to do with the time that you have, you know. But so that's one of the things I like about this. And the other thing is the dice system is really simple. It's 4, 5, and 6 is a success, and 1, 2, and 3 is a failure, except in some very extreme cases. And we'll get into those as we talk a little bit more about the system. Probably once we start playing, I'll bring up some of the different ways that you can get those extra bonuses for things. And the reason that you do that, and I think just for people who've never played an RPG at the tabletop, is that there is no rule that says what you can and can't do in a tabletop RPG. So we're going to tell a collective story, and I'm going to set up a situation, which I've kind of set up this scenario, and I'm going to put you in a very specific spot in the scenario when we first start. And then you guys are going to have to make decisions about what you want to do. And there's no, well, I have this set of things that I can click on and it'll just happen. It's no, you want to go completely off script and do something totally different. Go for it.
Okay.
That's the exciting part, is like, there's nothing, there's no, mechanical boundaries like in a video game where you can't walk down this hallway, or, that door won't open. If you want to try and open those doors, they're there, and we'll figure out what's behind them together. We'll tell the story of what's going on there. So that's sort of the ins and outs of this. And then the other thing about it is that we're going to fully flesh out this character so that it has a set of skills, that it has this, we've already kind of got this history, and I'm glad, because it's kind of marinating there. And then there's going to be some things about this character that it's going to have traits that define who the character is. And so you have to think a little bit about, like, Han Solo is that he's always smiling. He's the kind of troublesome guy that is a quick talker, and that's what both gets him into a lot of trouble, but also gets him out of it. And that would definitely be one of his traits. Whereas Chewbacca might have the trait of just very large and imposing. but just being very large and imposing, like for Chewbacca, doesn't necessarily make him tough, right? It just makes him large and imposing because he's a big baby.
Right.
So that's kind of how we're going to go through and pick all of those traits and everything. But the one thing I really wanted to talk to you about on here, because I think it's the more interesting part of it, is now that you know a little bit about this character's backstory and where he is falling into things, let's talk about what the beliefs should be. And so the beliefs that a character has are 3 defining things that they believe about themselves and their place in the galaxy. And so kind of going back to the original Star Wars characters, Luke, one of his beliefs might be something like, I'm going to get off this planet and do something great. And that's like his belief when he starts off on Tatooine, right? And so every time he gets into a position where he can engage with that belief and do something that advances that belief, then he gains that experience that allows him to kind of better himself. And so you see that as he goes through, like, I'm going to get off of this planet and do something great. You see him kind of go and do great things and push himself beyond his bounds in doing those.
Is there does this document have like a list of those kind of things, or is that something that we're brainstorming and talking through?
and part of it too is like, this is what you want. This is the story that you want to tell about this character. So now that you have a little bit of an idea about him, we're going to think through like what you want to say about him.
Okay. So my kind of initial thought would be, I've always loved I guess you could say the hero's journey story of, someone who, kind of comes from a backwater world and gets caught up in things bigger than himself and learns and grows and becomes the hero. And not that I want my character to become the hero, but at least where he's coming from would be a place of just being kind of solo and independent. And more than likely there's he, at least the way that I've been sort of sitting with this and what he's doing, he's probably not looking at the big picture, and he's just looking for the next job. And so if he gets hired by Bail Organa, it's not necessarily because he agrees with the Rebel Alliance, but it's because it's the next job. And
right.
But like where I want his story to go would be to have his eyes open to the bigger story and, to grow in that way, because if he just kind of stays in just job to job, that's not fulfilling for me to walk through that character either.
Right. Okay. So one of his beliefs, you could center it around that search for meaning, right? So
sure. Yeah.
That would be a good way to kind of push that boundary. Like he's looking for more than just the next job. But then at the same time, he can also have that one that's, I'll complete any mission that's given to me if the money's good enough. Right. And so that could be one of his beliefs too.
And we need 3.
Right. How would he feel about the Empire, the idea of rebellion? I mean, he's got a kind of strong freedom streak, right? So does he feel like that's for everybody, or is it just for him?
Well, maybe let's see. Those are good questions. I mean, and it's so hard for me to like divorce my own personal opinions on these things, because I'm like, of course, freedom for everyone, and of course the Rebel Alliance is the ship that you should back and all of that sort of thing. I'm wondering though. Well, and I think maybe that's where I want like that search for meaning for him to go. But maybe initially, I mean, being Chiss, he would be very, I don't know if opposed is the right word, but just kind of neutral, I guess, in the galactic politics, and stay away. So, I would say that his point of view, at least initially, would be don't get involved.
I like that. Actually, so here's a really interesting thing, that as you play the game, you can change beliefs. So your character,
good, because I don't want him to stay there.
No, you're not stuck with it. And that's one of the ways that you can plumb beliefs for the Artha, for the experience, is to counteract them, so to go against them. But you can't do it too many times without the game master saying, okay, you've gone against that 3 times now in big ways. They've been great. But has your character grown past that? Do they believe something else now in place of that thing that you had? So maybe remaining neutral is I'm not going to take sides in conflict. That might be his. I'm not going to take side in conflict I'm not involved in.
Yeah,
that might be his stance.
Because I don't see him as like a pacifist, so to speak. But like if something's threatening him or his family or the Chiss, I think there'd be a strong sense of loyalty to family and his culture. But in the overall Galactic Empire and Rebellion, yeah, at least initially he's just doing jobs to get money.
All right. I think that's good. I think that's a good 3 sets of beliefs.
Yeah.
And then you get also, and here's another fun one. You get 2 instincts that this character has.
Okay.
And what an instinct is just a basic reaction that they have to the world around them. And it kind of gets, it lets you rewrite something that's happened. So for example, you get into a fight. Actually, really good example. Going back to original Star Wars, right? Han is very quick to draw his blaster, right? So you could almost say, I draw my blaster at the first sign of trouble. That's like one of his instincts.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that works in game is you walk into a room, Darth Vader's there. Well, or no, Han's is probably, I shoot first, right? That's Han's belief.
Yeah.
I shoot first, right? So Han's belief is I shoot first, walks into a room in Cloud City. There's Vader. What does he do?
Yeah.
Blasters out, shoots him. This is the first thing he does, right? And so that's an instinct, which is, it's great if it works to your benefit, but then it can get you in trouble too.
Not against Darth Vader.
Right? Exactly. So he shoots at Vader, and it's like, it doesn't help. But that's, so you think of 2 instincts that he has that kind of tell how he reacts to things.
Okay. Well, so at least initially, my thought there would be, so, and I'm looking at Grand Admiral Thrawn for this because he's kind of the quintessential. However, so I don't know how to translate this, but an awareness of danger. Reading the room, being able to calculate strategy. I would not say that he would be I'm going to draw the blaster, shoot first immediately. His would be more of I assess the situation and I inherently kind of know who my potential threats are and can calculate a response. And I don't know how to translate that to an instinct. Like spotting danger or
I could see something like I'm always hyper aware of my surroundings.
Mm-hmm.
You could put just hyper aware of surroundings, and then that could give, so the mechanical advantage in game would be that if something is happening where I'm kind of trapping your characters into something, you get a perception check for it before it happens. So it's not, you're not going to be caught unawares completely, and you'll have something of a plan ready and an understanding of what's happening where other people weren't. And it's basically just that your character didn't know what was going on, but they were taking in all those pieces of information,
right,
and are ready once it does happen.
Mm-hmm. And then what about something to do with just quick reflexes?
Quick reflexes in what way?
I guess I keep going back to danger, and like as a pilot, you'd have to have, if I mean, awareness and awareness and reflexes, I think would go hand in hand. Is that, you'd, I don't know if that'd be an instinct or a skill, like dexterity.
Yeah, it's more just a piloting ability and kind of.
Yeah, I guess that would be skill more than anything. An instinct. Do you have other examples to kind of?
Yeah, let's see. You could do something like a good Jedi would be, one of their instincts could possibly be to talk before committing to an action. Like that's their instinct, is always to talk before committing to an action. And so, they do that diplomacy kind of thing first to try and get that out of the way before they go back. Obi-Wan. I'm trying to think of a good one for Obi-Wan, because he's a good example of a guy with good instincts. He has like sort of that preternatural awareness. Mm-hmm. He also, though, he's also very good at half-truths. That's one of Obi-Wan's.
From a certain point of view.
Yeah, from a certain point of view, like everything is couched in ways that make things look more positive than they are, possibly. And so that's one of his instincts, is to tell the good story.
Well, so I mean, but how would that like translate? So like, I guess I'm thinking I would want my character to be sort of a optimist, but I don't know if that would be kind of the same thing, or is
there maybe a piece of maybe because he has a ship, maybe he cares a lot about that ship. Well, I don't know. We don't know if he has a ship yet. We're gonna have to go back through and figure that out. He probably does, but we're gonna have to go back through and figure that out. Like you could be protective of something. Chewbacca would be a good one, with the instinct to protect Han, right? To always keep Han safe, even at his own expense.
Well, and so that could work, to be protective, especially if he's got passengers on his ship.
Okay.
Because that would fit. And it fits with just even his just loyalty too. Like if this is going to be his little adoptive family, just as he's delivering someone somewhere. And actually that fits my personality too.
To be protective of your charge.
Okay. Yeah. And not just like of the ship, but yeah, of the people in the ship, or the people in his mission, I guess, if you will.
Okay. Sounds good. We might hone that one in a little more, because the good thing about instincts is that you want them to have like a really solid application inside of the game, so that when you choose to ignore or use an instinct, it's reflected in a struggle in the character, right? Where he's like, I don't know, I see that this would be the right thing to do at this moment, because that's what I would normally do, but I am not going to step in to this situation, or I know that this is bad for me, but this is the way I'm going to respond. Like that hyper awareness could come into play negatively, like things are not going wrong, but you've got that plan anyway. And when asked about it, you have that plan, and that's always, it's like the Batman's prep for the Justice League, when he's got like the red kryptonite, and everybody's like, well, why? Why do you have that red kryptonite? Well, because someday Superman might go bad. So that's how that kind of plays in, those instincts on a larger scale.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see. I'm trying to think of what else we can do that's really interesting and not just number crunchy for the listeners. Do you have any questions about how the game's going to run?
Why don't you just explain an overview of like what that process looks like?
Okay, so with this game, there's several different types of play that happen, and it can be fighting there, but fighting is definitely not a major part of this game. Whereas with D&D, it's kind of like you go and you get in the next fight and you fight, and then you go and get in the next fight and you fight. With this game, it's a lot more about trying to advance those character concepts. So where we're going to start is you guys are going to be in the middle of this blockade run. You're going to have gotten onto the planet without any problem because nobody cares, about a ship landing on a planet. It's not that big a deal. It's when you're trying to leave with this valuable item that Bail Organa wants that you're going to run into some trouble. And so we're going to start at that point where it's like, oh, this is trouble. And that's kind of where the story is going to begin. And I'm debating which part of the game to start with specifically, but we're going to kind of go with each of the different, like a couple of the different settings that the story can be in. So there's Duel of Wits, which is basically just two characters are facing off with each other, trying to convince the other of something. And so one has to pick what their main point that they want to get across is. The other has to pick what their main point that they want to get across is. And then they have to figure out how they're going to get that point across to the other person. And so those can actually be really interesting because you have two characters that are at odds and they have to convince the other one of something that's happening. And that's those scenes where you get in the hallway and they're like yelling at each other about what they're supposed to be doing. And, and so that's that one. And then there are the fight scenes where there's actually, it's mostly going to be range and cover in this one, where you're going to be down a hallway shooting at somebody that's somewhere else down the hallway. And that'll be, you'll want to stay behind cover as much as you can and try and get shots off. And I will tell you, in this game, wounds hurt. Like they are not, it's not in, like RPG where you just, throw back a back to potion or something like that and you're good to go. Stuff can actually hurt in this game pretty seriously. So you got to be really careful. And then there's other parts of the game that are about like, gathering your resources, and we won't be able to do as many of those because you're going to be in this very specific scenario. But it would be, as a freelance pilot, you've made some connections. And so for some parts of the game, you might be able to go back to those connections and ask for some assistance or get some aid. And then the turn of that is that they might come to you asking for something as well. So if you think about like Han's just such a great example for all of this stuff, because Han's got the connections to, the underworld. His ship is basically owned by Java at the moment because he had to dump a bunch of cargo out on his last mission. But he can go back to Java too and get a job or get connections with somebody else that he needs to in the underworld. And so that's kind of how that portion of it plays out. And really, in any of those cases, what I'll do is I'll present you guys with a problem, and then you have to figure out how you want to solve it. So you'll say, oh, well, okay, our characters and this NPC, this non-playing character that we're encountering, they disagree on something. Like maybe whatever this thing is that you're trying to get off the planet is controlled by someone and they don't want it to leave. You don't necessarily have to draw guns. You could try and convince the person with the Duel of Wits, hey, we need to take this. And, maybe you make the whole thing so clean that nobody knows you're even there. You just get it on the ship and you fly off, and that'd be great. That's not what's going to happen, but that would be cool. And so that's the kind of thing so what I'm going to do is I'll tell the first part of the story, and then you guys will pick up from there and say, okay, well, my character does this, and my character's going to do this to help them, or do this other thing that will help finish off my part of the story as I'm there. And I'll give each one of you like a slightly different thing that you're intent on doing while you're there. So you've each been given a mission. Overall, it works as one mission, but each of you has kind of a different thing that you're focusing on, different part of the mission that you're really intent on completing. Okay. Too. So yeah. And it's one of those things, like as we play, I'll explain more of it and it'll make more sense once we get started. And so you'll have your character sheet in front of you. And just as a really easy example, if you guys get into a blaster fight, you'll probably have a laser pistol skill or a blaster skill or something. And as you're shooting back and forth with the other group, you'll be hiding behind cover and then dodging out and trying to shoot and rolling to see if you hit anything. And if you do, then yeah, okay, that's a success. That's the person probably backs out of the fight. Or if you don't, then maybe you hit something that you didn't intend to, and it something else happens and leads to a complication in the game and drives it forward.
And you're basically the narrative glue that kind of keeps us all together. And I'm assuming then too, you have an end. Your story arc has an end point that we're working towards.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So the primary goal in this one, this one's actually going to be, because we're going to do kind of a short one-off, is just to do the blockade run. That's going to be sort of our end state, is to figure out whether or not you guys manage to make it back off the planet with this thing that you're supposed to have. And hopefully
now I'm kind of nervous
end with you guys. Yeah. See, hopefully it will end with you guys flying off into the stellar, the galactic sunset and delivering this thing back to Bail Organa. But who knows?
Mm-hmm.
There's all sorts of things that could happen.
It could set up even for future scenarios.
Exactly.
Cool.
And that's kind of, so I want to leave it open-ended, because I don't want to say we'll probably never do this again. But if people love it and like, it's like, okay, hey, yeah, this is really cool. And I went with this system because I wanted to make sure that we had kind of a more narrative system than that we needed something, like physical things to show where we were moving and stuff like that.
Yep.
All right. And I'll finish up working out the rest of the character with you. I think we got a really good start on it, though. The last thing I want to know is the character's name. Have you picked a name yet?
Jet.
All right.
Jett. And there's a number of reasons for that. First of all, and it sounds kind of silly, but I kind of like it. Jango Fett is my favorite character, right? So if you take the J from Django and then the ETT from Fett, mush them together and you get Jet. But also, there's a character in Legends. His name is Jagged Fell, and I really like him. So I kind of like the. Apparently, I like guys with J names for whatever reason.
There you go.
And then there's also just the fact that it fits the whole pilot mentality that I was thinking about, a jet engine. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, well, yeah, I just go with it. So,
all right.
Jet is my character.
Very cool. And then, give him a family name too. Like,
well, so that would fit with Thrawn actually. So, Myth, well, the Myth would be the family name, but
okay.
Well, so I was having trouble combining those two, because actually in the Chiss language, or the Chiss naming scheme, Myth would come first, and then so for example, Thrawn, it's Myth Thrawn Neurodo is how you pronounce his name. So Thrawn is like the center part, and that's what he's called outside of the Chiss ascendancy. I'm not sure if there is a family name that ends with a J that I could fit with that. I'd have to look that up. I haven't even looked that up. But if you put Jet first, you could do, but then it doesn't work with the naming scheme. So in my mind, it was sort of like, this is a name that he's chosen for himself, rather than if he's sort of living independent of the Chiss ascendancy.
Right.
So
I like that though. That's cool. Be thinking of a family name, because that'll give him kind of a more of an anchor into the space, which is good, because that's what I already feel like. This character is kind of popping off the screen, off the paper.
Mm-hmm.
So this is good. And he fits with kind of what I'm shooting for in the story that we're going to be telling of this particular event.
Good.
So, all right.
Yeah, I just Googled all the family names, or at least the 9 ruling families. There's not one that ends with J, unfortunately. But I can totally choose one and go with, he chose his own name.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's fine. He's got an independent streak enough to say, my name's unpronounceable by you people anyway here.
Right.
Awesome. All right, so I think we're good. I think that kind of gives a good sense of where we're starting from. And then when we meet next time, we'll do a really quick overview of everybody's characters. So they'll talk about, a little bit of their backstory and who they are, and kind of what their beliefs are and what's driving them into the story. And then I'll talk with you guys a little bit offline too about the mechanics, so that we're prepped and don't have to do too much explanation, but we'll give a brief explanation of all the things that we're doing as we're playing through, so people understand why we're rolling dice and what's happening on that end.
Yeah. And I hope that listeners, that you enjoyed our conversation, right? This is such a foreign thing to me, so it was fun to go through, but also it gives you a introduction on how we go about building characters for this kind of a thing. So yeah, we'll jump into the story next time.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. So here we go. That's it from us. This is kind of our pre-build of the characters, and to get started, we'll share with you some of these documents so that you can check them out. But before we go too far into our closing, I'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create The Secrets of Star Wars, including Kristen W., Yusuf D., Bryce P., Raphael G., and Patricia V. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue The Secrets of Star Wars and all the shows here at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. And just as a reminder, you can get our new Secrets of Star Wars t-shirt. It has an official caricature logo of all of the voices that you hear on our podcast, and it is fantastic. Every one of us, when we saw it, our jaws dropped. I think we were so in awe. And
it's based on our nicknames, so Bendu, Mudhorn,
right,
Ronan, Obi-Wan, and Jango Fett.
Yeah, it's and the artist really captured, like, I think not only the different characters that we're representing, but also us in like in a very real way. So it was really cool. And you can check it out at sqpn.com/merch. If you listen to any of the other shows, there's a few others. Father, you were saying that the Secrets of Star Trek?
Secrets of Star Trek, Secrets of Doctor Who, and Secrets of Stargate all have logos up. And I think they're doing more, so stay tuned if you listen to... I think they want to make one at least for Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World. And I imagine the others too, so I think more is coming.
All right, awesome. So be checking that out. We do have some more merch stuff that's coming all the time, pretty much. There's some new stuff going up on there, so it's a great way to help support all the stuff that we do and have some awesome swag to walk around and talk about it too. So to find previous episodes of The Secrets of Star Wars, please do visit sqpn.com/Star Wars. Next time, we'll be back in a couple of weeks. We're going to actually tell the story of these characters and their mission that they've been given by Bail Organa to go into a Federation-owned or a previously Federation world and extract something for his budding rebellion. So until next time, Father Andrew, thank you. It's been fun.
Absolutely. This is super exciting. I can't wait.
Okay. Thanks again for joining me tonight. My name is Thomas Sanjurjo, and this has been Secrets of Star Wars.